and we welcome everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of Bread for Soul Convos with myself, Sir LSG. And thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for watching this. If you can, please share the video so that other people can have access to this knowledge that we will be sharing on today's episode. And today's topic is mastering, and I just wanna introduce it like gogo music for the past 19 years has been known for the quality of the product, the quality of the music, the mixing and the mastering. And my first song, which was released on gogo music, was in 2011 with Sex in the City. It had a raw artistic soul remix and a nasty nerve remix. And one of the most important factors or phases of what we do is really mastering at the end part of what we do when it comes to music production. And it's a very important one because a lot of people get it wrong, especially in the beginning stages. But as you will learn, you don't need to do it by yourself, guys. If you want to do it properly, you don't need to do it by yourself. And on the other end of this line, I have Andreas Balaskas from Master Lab in Germany. And Andreas has been mastering gogo music releases since 2006. And he's got over 25 years experience as a mastering engineer only, and 40 years experience in the audio business. Let me welcome Andreas. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, well, thank you for your invitation, LSG. Yeah, this is very, very early in the morning for me. I mean, you, you may be very honored that I speak to you at this time already. 9 o'clock is not the time I'm normally talking to anyone.
I'm definitely honored, not only for this, but I'm also honored to have a legendary figure such as yourself, somebody who's been in the game for this long, and the work that you've done. I'm really happy. I'm honored to have you on the show. So thank you twice for doing
Well,
this.
yeah, actually, it's very nice for me too to finally make a face to some of the stuff I do for Ralph. I mean, Ralph and me, we lived in the same city for quite a while before he went to South Africa. Well, also I went to Berlin, and so that changed our lives, each one's. And but most of the stuff I get from him is he just sends me to it, and I have no idea who's doing it and how they look like, how they produce, whatever. But it's always fun. It's always great music. I love house music. It's just cool to work on.
Cool. And if I may ask, like, so that we can, because this is an informative platform, and I pride myself in having at least the blessing to have people like you and experts like you to come in and share their knowledge. If we could start just by explaining mastering to somebody, what is mastering?
Um, well, you want me to go back to the history or to the current state?
Well, it's up to you. It's up to you.
Okay. Let's just do a very quick history thing. Mastering was or is the transferring your mix to the actual product, which used to be cutting a vinyl from tape. Later on, transforming like a digital DAT tape or something like that onto a printable a medium which can be replicated, and it's more of a quality checking stage in the end than the creative part. The creative part came later on. So today it's part of the whole production, and we have a lot of tools now to improve the mix, the product, to be listenable on different systems, and it always depends on what the product is, how we approach it. So if yeah, in your case, we have house music, which practically gets played in clubs. We try to optimize it to be high quality, high energy, but also very dynamic content. So you can really play it loud on a club system, apart from other maybe um, there's other styles which you will try to master differently because they will be played mostly on small speakers, maybe on the kitchen radio or something like this. So there are different approaches for the different purposes, and I think in a competing world like this right now, the mastering stage is your last chance, your last stage where you can get it right more or less. And because we mastering engineers are normally not involved in the production and in the mixing, we we judge it from a different standpoint. You know, it's like you get a track and you listen to it and you have no idea what went wrong in the production, or maybe the singer had a cough, or yeah, had a cold somehow, so that's why she or he sounded like this. So you never think, okay, well, uh, I remember the problems, so I yeah, I have excuses for why it sounds like this. This is not the case. You just hear a song and think, oh well, yeah, it's like, well, it's a little bit nosy. There's some mid range. Maybe I try to fix that, and so you fix it, and because you're not directly connected in the production stage, you're somehow outside and judge it from a different standpoint. And this is the last point. You can get it right before it hits the street. So, and it's really the something which people don't understand is mastering is not something you send it off and you think, okay, he does his magic, or she, like Emily Lazar or something. There are ladies in mastering as well. No, it's a communication thing. So if I do mastering on a track like yours or like Ralph's, I do what I think helps this track to be presented in the best way, and then I send it back, and you have to listen to it, and you have to check it on your car speaker, on your system, whatever, and say, well, I like this, or I don't like this, whatever, and then we change it. So it's a communication thing, you know.
Okay, before we carry on, I just want to get through to 2 points with everyone. The first one being the question of the day that we have, and people can engage with us and be part of the conversation. And today's question is, what's the best sounding album you've heard as a viewer? Whoever is watching this, let us know the best sounding album you've heard, artist and album title, and we will share those answers towards the end of the show. And secondly, I am running a competition today, or we are running a competition. This is an exclusive Bread for Soul beanie, like the one that I'm wearing now. And I'm giving one of these away to a lucky viewer, free, including a delivery fee. So all you have to do, watch this episode, learn from it, and I'll ask 2 questions right after the episode on my status. The first person to answer both questions correctly will win this beanie. But I just want us to get engaged in this lesson. And then, Andreas, I want us to get into experience, right? Like, especially now with the evolution of VSTs and how technology has enabled producers, firstly, to make music from home. I'm making music on my laptop. And some people feel like they can do everything themselves. They can mix, they can master. And what is the difference between somebody who is just graduated from college, picks up a laptop, and downloads the latest VSTs, and someone like you who's been in the game, doing only mastering for 25 years. I mean, you've been in the audio business, like I mentioned, for 40 years. But what's the main difference that you are bringing into the game with your experience?
It's a difficult question. I mean, uh, first, yeah, it's experience. It's in different areas. I mean, I started out as a musician myself, sure. So at one point, I changed the view and went to the mixing board, and I did live sound, I did recording, mixing, producing, and after I would say about almost 10 years, I started with the mastering as a side project to my general audio business, and I did everything from um, huge live shows in Africa, um, festivals, up to small gigs. So I think one thing which contributes to your view about music is um, how should it sound? I mean, you have to have a knowledge how instruments sound in reality. You have to get a sense of how you would present it, and also it's a matter of taste as well. I mean, not all music sounds the same, and it depends. It's difficult. I wouldn't say that just graduated newbie can't do great sound. I wouldn't say that. I always say everyone can master. That's not the point. I mean, everyone can really master. Um, the question why someone shouldn't do it himself or herself is that it's like doing music all by yourself. You lose the perspective. You don't gain something from outside. You don't get new ideas. Don't get a different view from someone else, which means you are stuck with your own ideas and your own views of how it would be. That can be perfect. And really today, with the tools you get today, I mean, we couldn't imagine that back in the days. I mean, it's the plugin scene has, or the quality of the plugins has increased so drastically in over the past years that yeah, I would say is hardware really necessary? Sometimes, and sometimes not. It's a matter of how you work with it and how you choose it really in a in your work. I mean, I can do, and I do actually sometimes work totally digitally. Oh, you're showing our plugin, which we did. Okay, I can talk about that later. Um, and sometimes the complete digital path just doesn't work, and vice versa. Sometimes analog doesn't work. So, but back to the experience is you have to listen to a lot of music, and if you want to make a living out of mastering, you need to be very broad in your experience and in your tastes. You can't just I just can't live solely from house music. So I'm doing everything from jazz to commercial music to um, scoring film music, everything, classical, punk, you name it. And so you have to have knowledge in all these genres and how you think they should sound, and give people an idea of how the finished product could be.
Mm. Cool. I would like us to get into a video note as to what really goes on between that phase of getting a song from a mix engineer or a producer and getting this song ready for mastering. And I have a voice note from Ralph Gum. I'll just play it quickly before we carry on with the interview.
Hello guys, I hope you're well. I'm of course Ralph Gum, and as Lesejo is talking today to Andreas Balaskas of MasterLab Mastering Studios, he asked me to break down what actually is important for a mix before it goes to mastering. And I'm sitting in my studio. I'm finishing up something which goes the next days to Andreas, a new single, and so what is important in a mix? I actually think mixing is a science on its own, and it's hard to say in 2 or 3 words. But if I have to say what the most important aspect would be, it's the levels. If your levels aren't correct and the bass line is way too loud or the kick is way too loud, it's hard to correct all those mistakes. So get your levels right, and it's halfway for the mastering. Enjoy the talk with Andreas and Lesejo.
Yeah, get your levels right, guys. But I want to know from Ralph. I hope he's watching this. But like, what song is this? I'm actually keen to find out. But anyway, so what's more important from you when you receive a song? How do you view it? Like, what are the first steps that you take? Once you start getting this song before you work on it.
First of all, the client is threatening me with work again. Oh my God. Well, I think it's totally basic and totally easy. You drop it in your DAW, you listen to it, and you try to feel what it's about. And what Ralph means when he says get your levels right is he means get your mix right. I mean the balance. When we talk about levels, most people refer to the overall level of the stereo output, which is practically not really important as long as it doesn't clip. Get your mix right and present your view, your vision. If it's a vocal-based track and the vocals are barely hearable, there's something wrong in the first place. And we can try to fix it in the mastering, but maybe we better go back to the mixing stage again. So I ask for either a new mix or sometimes also stems, which is quite common in the last years, to get this balance better. But the real point about it is do everything what you can do to have the song, the mix, present your vision, which can be very, very difficult and very, very different. So if you think it should be a real bass-heavy track, then you need to be bass heavy. If you think it must be a very shiny track with being very light on its feet and really make you happy, then maybe you shouldn't make it too bass heavy. And so it all depends on how you present your vision of that song. And we try to feel that vision and improve it so it works on all systems, on most systems. It's normally in mastering you do not drastically change the track, I mean something I always say as well is I'm doing the most useless job in the world, because mastering never made a hit, and if a song is a hit, even the worst mastering wouldn't keep it from getting a hit. So we don't change the music; we just present it better. so it is more enjoyable. You know, the package, it's the package which we try to really improve, which means if a song is not listenable in your car stereo because it's too dull, too boomy, that's normally the problems, then it's not enjoyable and you won't listen to it too many times, even though it might be a great song. But if it's not really catching on you won't listen to it. And so we try to do a nice package. I mean, like new clothing, you know. The inside is the same, but if you have a nicer outfit, you just feel better.
Sure, and you mentioned something the other time when we were chatting, me and you, that you know, the rate of mastering engineers, especially if you are gonna get services from somebody who's an experienced mastering engineer, and with the value that they bring to the music, and the price that you will pay is different from somebody who is just from college, does not have the experience, and might not have the know-how to really present this product in its best form. How would you explain it, and have you had struggles with pricing your services compared to the on increasing technology and ability that presented to other people who are able to master songs quickly?
Well, this is a global problem. It's all present in music production or media production everywhere. Technology improved so much that everyone can do. I mean, physically, possibly with the tools they get, but I mean, I have a lot of tools like a wrench, a saw, and a drill, but I'm no carpenter, you know. So I can do some woodwork, but it looks accordingly, I would say. So it's not the tools you hire; it's the expertise and the taste, and also yeah, the communication and the input which someone gives to your product. That's what you hire. The problem with decreasing prices or price fights, it's a problem. I'm talking to people, to friends, to engineers for the last 30 years, because it's not only started in mastering. It started in mastering when DAWs got commonly available and very cheap available as well, and also the well, today we're not doing too many albums anymore. You know, it's a lot of singles or EPs, like the stuff from Ralph. It's There's a different approach to a single track you master or to an album, because an album has to work in a bigger sense. You know, it has to be a complete book and not just a page. So there is a big difference in mastering a song or mastering an album, also from the technical side, you know. But the problem really is that someone who is working for very low money, very little money, is most of the time they are not able to calculate and to run a business for a long time, because if you are if this is your business, you have a lot of expenses which are different from the actual work you do. I mean, it's when I say, okay, well, I take $25 for a track, it's maybe, okay, well, I master a track and I have $25 on my pocket. Okay, I only bought a laptop and some headphones. All right, but if you run a business, a mastering studio with people coming in here, you have to have a good room, you have to have the best equipment, you have to have an insurance, I mean, all this stuff adds up. You pay taxes, yeah, what some people doing it on the side just don't do. But as a business, to make your living off, you need to calculate the figures differently. And to be honest, in the musical business, not many people know how to do numbers, and so they do it for a couple of years, and then they see, okay, this is not working out, and I can't make a living off of it, and then they have to do something differently. I mean, it's the problem as an artist. You always have to be a businessman as well, and this is something which is not obvious to most people, and also mostly artists, let's say musicians or even engineers, they don't get taught this. I mean, I know so many artists which when they started and tried to make their living off of it, 1 or 2 or 3 years later, the financial authority came back to them and said, okay, so now pay your taxes. And they're like, what? This is not my money. and they fall off the grid, you know. It's because it's really, I mean, the time I master is maybe 25, maybe 30% of the job I do. All the rest is promotion, accounting, I mean, maintenance, I mean, you name it. Checking out new stuff, new plugins, new hardware. I just have gotten 2 boxes here from a Spanish company for the master bus compression side. They wait for checking out, and this all is time you spend, but you're not getting paid for this. But this is in the end important to be top notch and to be really, play with the big guys.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to that, because a lot of people want to have a Ralph Gum sounding song or album, and I'm glad. I'll also mention my own album with Moving Circles, because I think the mastering was fantastic on that, and it adds to the entire project. It improves, actually, it enhances the life of the project on its own. But a lot of people would want to have this sounding album without wanting to pay this much, you know. Like, you cannot have a Bentley idea with a Volkswagen budget, or a Tesla budget, or a Toyota budget. It's just the reality of things. Some things you will have to pay more for them to actually get yourself sounding like Jay-Z, sounding like Jimster, for example, at Jazz. That's what it takes to, and I can do it myself. And if you can't do it yourself, if you're not at Jazz and you can't mix and master that well, you will have to outsource to somebody who can do mastering. And the level at which you wanna sound will be dependent on how much you are willing to invest in that side of your production. I want us to get into the mastering of a remix I did for Ralph. And I must say, before we get into that, Andreas, there, I realized much later that I've been working in my studio with my speakers high pass filter turned on. So I've been missing a lot of lows, right? So I mixed that song, or did a pre-mix, sent it to Ralph, and I got there, and he's like, brother, this thing is too bassy, there's no highs, there's no. So but I mean, we tried to fix it in the mix. But when you got that song, and when you get a song like that, what can you show us? What is it that you do?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, the first thing which you should do always when you mix is reference it. Take references, tracks, they sound good everywhere, and compare it to what you are doing. I mean, that's what we do, and that's what I do. So when I get an EP, let's say an EP from Ralph with different mixes, I'm not trying to make them all equal, but I want to get them in a certain ballpark to be on their own, but also playing with the others as well. So in your track, you said it was very bass heavy. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't remember it. So it's already gone for quite a while.
Yeah.
But actually, I did a mock-up here for you to see on the screen. And let me just get this shared. I think it's this one. Yep.
Yep, it is.
And we're talking about this track.
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing I listen to is how the overall feeling is. Yeah, excuse the sound. I guess over Zoom it's not the best sound quality. It's all in mono, and well, the compression just yeah,
Yeah.
goes down the drain. And so then the second thing for especially for house music is for me. Is it a track with or without vocals? So this is something which is important for me. And then I try to see how is the balance between the vocals and the overall beat. And so, yeah, I try to listen. And in this case, I have a complete plugin list here. And I mean, we can really go through the whole situation. I mean, you have to think of the processing in a sense that one thing adds up to another, and maybe then you have to compensate for something again, and so it's not a step-by-step thing. You add up processors, but you try to improve certain things, and then you might have to go back and adjust other things again. So in this case, what we do mostly is have a low cut. Actually, you said it was very bassy. So there was a low cut at 20 hertz to just roll off the extreme lows in this case. And well, more or less, you can see I worked here in FabFilter with a few mid-side EQs to improve the vocal strength, the vocal representation, and I rolled off some highs on the side here with this, but it's very gently, you know. I guess I tried to improve the kick here a little bit, and also shortened it with this isotope neutron. Here in the lows, you can see I reduced the sustain to make the kick low end, really the sub low end, a little bit, let's say, shorter. Actually, I also did this with our plugin as well, which this is something we invented. And it's a dynamic split plugin, but we can talk about this later.
yes, we will.
Then there's a general EQ, adding some highs. Yeah. So when you say, okay, this track was really bass heavy, most of the time I don't take off the bass, but I try to add up the rest, which I did on certain frequencies. And also, I showed you last time, I used the Leapwing Dyne 1. This is still the older version, which is a multi-band compressor, but it's not used as a compressor solely. It's in parallel mode, which means the compressed signal gets added to the original signal, and it gives certain yeah, it balances out the frequency range. And what you can see here is that I added less to the lower frequency than to the upper frequencies, and also this gets little bit compressed here, as you can see. Then we had some vocals, and if we have vocals, most of the time there is a de-esser involved, because most of the time we raise treble, the high frequency range, to open up the sound, which most of the time adds up to too much presence for the vocals, and we use a de-esser. So I'm glad that Softtube copied, or well, reinvented the Vice de-esser. I have this this Vice compressor as a hardware box here as well, but this is a yeah, an exclusive part of this compressor you can use as a de-esser, and it's really good. And as we have some vocals also, most of the time, because it's always nice to have a very open track and a spaced track, you lose a little bit of the strength of the power in the center of your mix. So in this case, I helped the center, especially in the vocal range, to get a nice focus on it, you know. So coming to DynaQ, there is something very easy to it. It splits the signal, and I can show you to it here. You have a dynamic section, and it splits it at a certain point here. We just listen to the above part, and so the above the split point, the signal gets routed in here, in this EQ and in this saturation and stereo width part, and the rest of the signal gets routed down here. And when you can imagine that there is peaks, you can see I added a little bit of punch in the kick here, but also when it drops again with the attack and release times, it reduces it's almost the same thing which I did with the transient shaper, that I just made it a little bit more focused, and then I reduced here a little bit of the 3 point something K of the vocal harshness when it gets loud. It's just like it is kind of a frequency compressor, but it's not. that's really the problem. And well, here back to this one. This is inverse linked, so you add up something here and you reduce it in the other part, or this way. So you are able to do certain things with this stage, with this plugin, which is not workable with other plugins. And then there's, I would say, the end stage, more or less. There's some final EQ here from Ozone. I used the vintage EQ, which is practically a Pultec EQ. Some imaging here to open up, to spread, making mono on the low side. Getting some gain here. It was just to gain up. And then there's another plugin I'm involved, which is Aroma. It is a kind of enhancing overtones. And so I added some flavors, which we call them. In this case, pepper, sugar, and chili. Especially chili just brings a couple of things out
I like the
of
name.
the music. then I used also a derivative from the Weiss compressor, the MM1, which is also an easy compress. It's not really compressing, I must say. It does some compression, but it's also a parallel way. So, and you can see I added very little, and then a final limiter, but very slowly. So it's always a stage of improving little things, improving some in small steps, and adjusting the other steps again to get the most out of it without destroying the feel, without changing the mix really. I mean, you just want to present the track in a better way and not change it completely. Normally. Sometimes we have, but normally not. I hope this wasn't too elaborate.
No, it wasn't. And I wanted to ask you then, is there a big difference between using software, and I assume you come from an analog era? What are those differences like as a mastering engineer that you would say you would note?
Well, there is there is speed of work. I mean, you are really faster using hardware than controlling plugins with a mouse. That's for sure. And also, I think there are different strength in different tasks. So yes, in the early days there was just hardware, more or less. I mean, plugins were really bad. They were really sounding like shit, and good hardware, even cheap hardware, was better than most plugins. Up to now, people say compression is a really hard thing for plugins to do, but I think the CPU power we get now and the plugins, they really improved quite a lot, and now we have plugins which can do things which analog hardware can't do. That's one point. I mean, just the DynaQ doing a split processing is not possible in the, well, it could be possible, but it would be a very expensive machine because there's so much stuff in there. And but it's for me right now, it's the situation that because of there are so many analog emulations now and producers work with them, either they really went back from working solely in the box to outboard gear again, or they're using a lot of analog emulation, let's say UAD or Acoustica Audio, which are sampled hardware processors, which give a lot of analog flavor to the mixes already. Sometimes it's better to work on the digital basis in mastering than adding up another layer of analog stuff. But it can be totally the other way around, that it would be a lot better to work in analog stuff. And sometimes I do it both ways and send it, especially if it's an album, and we do the first the first ideas of how the album should sound, and maybe do one track to to communicate about the outcome. I sometimes do two masters, one analog and one digital, to see how the producer feels, what would be better for his ideas, for his vision. And I must tell you, sometimes it's really interesting what the outcome is. That even on genres where you think analog would be great, I did a blues album, and I said, "Oh well, yeah, this needs to be analog, you know." And I just did a nice analog sounding, really strong and fat master. And then I thought, okay, let's try to do a digital. And I did it completely the other way. You have to think differently in that case. And well, in the end, the producer picked the digital one, and I was yeah, stunned. But so it's all about communication, you know. It's we try to give the producer a second view and a different idea, and then we have to communicate if it's the right idea or not.
And let's get into the plugin that you guys designed at Master Lab, the EQ. Do you want us to, if you can chat to us about that? How also add how it's available, where people can get it.
Okay, sure. Well, it is an idea of a friend, Andre Dubke. It was his idea to yeah to make this plugin, and he did a mock-up in the DAW with routings and stuff, and he presented it to me, and we found someone to code it, to program the actual plugin, and over time it took about 2 years. We refined the whole idea, and in end of October last year we launched the plugin. And as I already told you, the idea is that you have oh well, I have to share my screen again, huh?
Okay.
Where is it? Here. That you have let me get that out here. So, that you split the signal in two parts, in an above and a below part, the above and the below part, and then you can EQ these parts differently. And this is it's sometimes hard for the people to get their mind around this, because it's just unusual. It's very unusual to feel what it can do for you, but after a while you get a real hang of it. And it's not really a mastering plugin, but you can use it in mastering very well, because it can be very light in the processing. I mean, it can be very subtle, but it can be also very drastic in certain areas. It depends on you. So
if you could explain, like, in layman's terms, like the signal at the bottom and the one at the top, what are those signals?
Okay, well, I show you. Okay. This is I just went back to default mode. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. The first thing you do normally, well, if you play it, there's no change. Nothing will change. Also, if I use this dyna control, which is practically a threshold, I will turn it up and down. I don't know if can you hear me speaking over the music? Is that still workable?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So first, people do this, and they hear nothing. They don't hear a change, because if you imagine a split point or split line, if it doesn't depend on where the split line is. If you add those two, let's say, halves, which are not halves in a sense, but if you add these two parts together again in a perfect sense, it doesn't change it. So what you have to do is first you solo the above part. And if I turn this all the way up, you can see there's nothing. And then I drag this down, and you can see on the blue line, okay, now we're hitting the first peaks according to the attack and the release times and also the ratio. It can sound really gross, but believe me, if it's added up, it's perfect. There's no problem. So, okay, so you are selecting the stuff which goes to the upper part. This is the first thing. If you want to refine this, you have a low and a high cut. I can show you this as well. So the what goes to the signal up there is a different now with the low and the high cut. Now the kick triggers it. Now the kick doesn't. If you only want a kick to trigger it, you just blend off the stuff. But as you can hear, it's still a complete signal. It's not filtered in any way. It's the complete signal. So now we have two parts. Okay, let's check the lower part. And with these two VUs, you can see what kind of signal goes up and what kind of signal goes down. And now you have the freedom to equalize them differently. So let's do some drastical stuff. Okay, so which means you are just equalizing, in this case, the stuff which is over a certain threshold. But the interesting part is you can do it the other way around. You know, if I reset this, you can just equalize the stuff which is below the threshold, and also you can saturate the stuff below the threshold. So imagine you have a kick, and you want to add some distortion, some saturation to it, but not to the peak, only to the let's say the sustain part. You just add some saturation here, and you set your threshold to get the peak up on the upper half and the rest on the below part. So there's really a lot of creative possibilities, and to be honest, you can use it for instruments more or less like a gate or like an expanding processor. You can equalize with it. I just did a denoising process with it. I show you how I did this. It was very easy. It was a track with some strings. There was a recorded orchestra, and in the beginning and the end of the track, there was some hiss to the recording. And what I did, I set the threshold, and I just used a shelf to reduce the hiss. So whenever the signal exceeded the threshold, it came back, but very soft, with a very soft attack and a soft release, and it just blended off the hiss on this track. Totally easy, you know. And as I showed you, if you want to enhance and kick and make it shorter, you do something like this. You know, you add something to the kick, but also reduce the length according to this release, or the other way around. Maybe you want to make a kick longer and softer, like an 808 kick, even more, you can reduce the attack and enhance the release. So, sorry, there's so much different stuff you can do with it, and it's very, very light on CPU, so you can use it really in a mix situation.
This is
And where to get it? It's we have a website. It's called masterlab.audio, and you can purchase it there.
okay. And then what are the rates for? I mean, how much is this plugin? How much does it go for?
Well, in Europe, it's 89 euros, but it depends on your country and on your tax, yeah, on your taxes. So just check out. Well, there is a 30-day full demo. Just check out the demo. It works 30 days without any any restrictions. You can save, you can load. It works perfectly. That's because I think if I want to demo a plugin, I need to really use it. And like 7 or 14 days is just not enough, because most of the time you get a demo, you download it, and you start playing around, but then you have to do work. You cannot go back to it, and then you forget about it. And after 2 weeks, you get, oh yeah, I wanted to check this out because it was really cool, and you find that it's expired. So we did 30 days unrestricted demoing of the plugin. You just download it, and it's available for Mac and PC, or Windows and OS X, and in VST, AU, AAX, you name it. And let us know how you like it. I mean, it's really, I use it on drum when I mix. I use it on drums, on bass, on vocals. It's a great vocal, I would say, enhancer, but it's also a softener. Right? Something I would do on vocals, or I do on vocal stems, by the way, sometimes. Let me show you again.
Okay.
Something which is really, really interesting. You enhance the soft part of the vocals with some slight high shelf. Maybe you give it a little bit more bottom now, not inverse, sorry. Up, so here. Give it some, some breast, some thump, the vocals. But if he or she gets really edgy in the upper part, you just reduce it here, and so this is a complete vocal chain. And maybe if you want to give it some crunch, again, you just turn up the saturation, and maybe you can see it. If I use the right mouse click, it gets the controls go together in the below and the above part, and maybe you just add a little bit of saturation, not too much, for the vocals. So this can be a vocal EQing stage, and but it's not compressing. It's because people read dynamic here, they always think this is a compressor. Well, yes, in technical terms, this would be a compressor, but it doesn't compress. Because it basically compresses the signal down here, but the rest is up here, and it adds up perfectly together again. It's really, it's very, very nice.
I like
I just got a comment here on my Facebook page. Patrick says, great plugin. I use this EQ for drums and mid-range signals in my final steps for some sessions.
Nice.
Thank you.
I'm definitely going to check this out. And I wanted us to get into, well, I mean, it's almost time for us to close, but two more things. Oh, actually, just to note, so it's different than on my channel strip. It's different if I were to add let's say an EQ, and EQ the signal this way, and add another EQ after that one to EQ it in another way, because this one kind of works in one. It doesn't cancel out the effect of the two. I like that.
No. It's totally different.
Yes.
If if you have a signal like this, it splits the signal, and this part goes to above, and this part goes to below. So you cannot do this with two EQs. It's impossible. It's not possible. It is. You have to test it.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely going to test it.
It's really hard to explain. But the first thing you do is hit the solo button of the above, and listen to what the dynamic section is doing to this. And then you start to realize what it is doing to you. We had a review in a German magazine. It's in German. I'm still trying to get it properly translated. He started to realize what possibilities are in this plugin. We're really like after some time, and after a couple of weeks, he was really stunned what he can achieve with this, and very easily, very effortless. Let's say it this way. Like the example I gave you on the vocals, which is really. You just think, okay, well, every time the vocalist goes into a higher range or into louder parts, I reduce this or I add this, and if it's a little lower, I add this or reduce this, whatever. It's a matter of thinking in these two dynamic halves.
I love this song. I see a lot of people are saying on my side, on the Sir LSG page, they are saying that it's more like Galfos. I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is? GULLFOSS.
I'm not sure which one. Yes, I think there are some plugins which are in a certain way they are. Yes, some like it. I think Galfos did something. They also did a split thing, but it's more. What they do is they switch from one side to the other, and it's more like a gating thing, and it's more intrusive on that. And also, I think they just do equalization. I think, but we have added a couple of other things as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, just say check it out and let us know if you like it. There is a Facebook page as well, MasterLab audio plugins. Maybe we get some nice comments there.
Cool. I want to get into the answers to today's questions before we close. And we were asking what's the best sounding album people have heard, and a few people have answered. Charlton says Julian Gomes' Late Dreamer album. I love that album too. Mastered by ANDRES. Ralph Gum's Progressions. This is a home one. ANDRES and Julian Gomes, The Gift and the Curse. Yeah, man. Again, ANDRES on the works. Ralph Gum has the best mastered albums. I mean, of course he does. Late Dreamer. Okay, cool. We got to that. But to you, do you master for other house music artists that we might know?
I don't know. No, house music is not very strong around here, I must say. There's electronic music and different things, but I'm not sure. It's the point. Well, with Ralph, there's a long-standing work relationship. Also, friendship as well, sure. Um, but sometimes I just get stuff from labels or from producers, and I don't even know the names who are and under which name they are. Yeah, they hit the street. So in my case, it's really I get stuff sent, I work on it, and it goes back, and maybe do a change or two, whatever. And so yeah, I have no clue, I must say.
And how do you deal with your file management? Because you showed me the other day, I was asking you about this used to be, and you're like, bruh, you have everything. You've got all of the stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, actually, it's very, very easy. I just have a NAS, a network storage connected to my network here. In my case, it's Western Digital NAS, and yeah, it had to get bigger over time, and right now it's 16 terabytes, and this gives me the opportunity to work from. I really work on that. I mean, most of the time I'm only pulling off stereo tracks, mixes. Yeah, sometimes stems, maybe 2, maybe 4 stems, which is not really a big problem for the network. So I really work on that NAS. I don't have the mastering files local on my mastering computer. But the nice part about it is I can really have different computers hooked up to the network and do different things at the same time. So I can have something bounce out an hour, which takes maybe, with processing, it takes a half an hour, but I still can do other things on another computer. And also I can address it from all over the world. Actually, I told you I've been stuck in Thailand through Corona for quite some time, and I really had to pull off a couple of projects from my network storage to work on that, to make some fixes or to send files to someone. And it's well, it's a no-brainer, to be honest. I mean, having external storage is a good thing, and so there is a backup, and also yeah, sometimes I just connect a USB 3 drive to the NAS and do a backup of the NAS. It's very, very easy. So and I keep all the stuff I get normally, and also my masters. I think, well, stuff from 10 or 15 years ago are not really interesting anymore, and I'm not obliged to do that. I mean, it's not a service I charge for or I promote, but it's a service, and sometimes people come back to me and ask, oh, well, we had this track 2012. Do you still have that? We want to put it on another thing. And I always think, okay, you don't have it anymore. You lost your masters. You lost your mixes. Come on. And as I showed you, it's just a click away. And well, sometimes I have to search for older projects. I really have to search other media, because in the early days I had to back up to different other medias. To DVDs, to Blu-rays, no, not Blu-rays, but DVDs and DLTs, tape stuff. So sometimes I have to really search the archives if someone really wants it.
Yeah, and well, that's how you take care of your business, I guess, and you ensure that you always have the stuff. I think it's a good thing, like you say, it's a no-brainer. I always tell people that major record labels still have tapes and archives of stuff from the 70s, from the 60s, and if you're taking this as a business, as a producer especially, you ought to have your stuff, because who knows in 20 years time who might be asking for a master or a vocal stem from a song that you did a couple of years ago that might now bring you the millions. But I want to ask you, Andreas, before we close, how do you take care of your ears as an engineer? Like, because when I started learning audio production in college, that's the first lesson that they taught us, like that ears don't come back. Once they start going, they just keep on going, and they don't come back. How do you, for years and years, work on this in this industry and keep your ears alive?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm an old fart. It's. um, I mean, we can't neglect that we are not hearing like a 20-year-old anymore, but it is something which is not really important. I mean, there is no real musical content above, I don't know, 14, 15K. There are frequencies which also are important in a sense, to at least to some tracks, but it's not something you might not lose it completely. They get lowered, but as you live with your hearing and your experience, you always can judge it against your references. So well, yeah, protection is really something you should use. I'm not very fond of going to clubs anymore. I mean, I did live sound. I still do live sound when Corona is over. And I have for me, I have a very good sense of how loud things need to be and should be. And so when I mix myself, and it's sometimes very nice when you have a meter, an SPL meter next to you, and you mix something depending on what kind of genre it is. Because I do festivals, there's everything, from dance music to rock, whatever. And you set up this, and you think, okay, this is really grabbing onto you, and this is and I can really enjoy the level, the power, without feeling feeling a harshness or something like that. And then you look on the SPL, and you're always in the same ballpark, more or less. It's so I have a very good feeling. And if I go to a concert or in a club and it's too loud, I always see myself going somewhere else. I'm trying to find a spot in the location where it's less obtrusive and less, not hurting me, because I don't like to use earplugs. I can use it, and I do if it's really, really bad, and I want to enjoy the concert, to see the artist. Then I grab for the earplugs, but I try not to, and if I can manage without. And also it's a matter of releasing stress. I think the real point about this is how stressed you are. I mean, if you have very good speakers, which are where the transients are really correct, it's much less. There's much less fatigue on your ears than if you have cheaper or not so good speakers, which you constantly have to equalize in your head and set the timings. I mean, it's the same with MP3s to WAV files. MP3s are a lot harder and a lot just harder to hear for a longer period of time, because the timing is not perfect on lower MP3. So your brain works harder, and this is stress, So, but also, if you have a quiet location, a quiet room, you tend to listen lower, than if you have a noisy room or a noisy surrounding. So yeah, well, I mean, we can't really do anything. There's no ear polish where you can say, okay, if you use this liquid, your ears will be perfect over time. This is not true. I mean, we just can be careful and do not go to excessive loudness and stay for a long time. If it's too loud, I just move. I just go away.
Yeah. And with regards to the year, please remind me again, which year did you start doing go-go music stuff?
I have no clue. It is so long. It's you must ask Ralph.
I think it's
I think
2006.
it started out with Go-Go 004, I think. Inaya Day or something was the first stuff I remember. But in the beginning, it was very. We didn't know each other before, so he came to me and we started to work. I think he just came back from Mallorca or where he was living before, and so it was a slow rise in working together, and I really don't have a clue. I started with mastering in '95, so I guess it must be somewhere around the 2000s. I'm not sure, actually.
No worries. Last question. What is it about you guys, Germans, right? Like, there's German cars, and they are renowned for the for the precision that they have and the quality that they produce, and you've got German producers. I mean, like Ralph Gam is one of those, and you've got yourself as a German mastering engineer. Is it like just something that comes naturally to you guys that you wanna be producing, or at least having an output that's the best, or one of that can be amongst the best in the market?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think, well, I think there is a general thing about how we live and how some other countries or regions in the world live. There is a sense of correctness we try to have. We try to do things right because we are not the easygoing people in a sense. We most of the time make our lives harder than sometimes it should be. But I wouldn't say that there is a general rule to it. And to be honest, German cars, yes, they are good German cars, but they have also some problems today. I'm not sure if I don't have a car, but if I would buy a German car right now, I maybe would buy a Japanese car or something else. I mean, I would buy the one I could afford. So with let's say with sound, there is. I really adore French engineers. They are fantastic. There's a certain sound to British engineering, which is somehow rougher. Maybe it has to do with the weather, you know? It's really, it's the style of life which contributes to the way you work or the way you feel. And I think the hotter it gets, the easier life is because it's more outside, it's more about community, it's you take things more lightly, and maybe that also flows into your work, into your music, into your sound, and you just say, well, okay, that's good enough. It's something. Well, that's good enough for me. I leave it like that. That's something which is different on different parts. You know, I mean, I like to travel, so I go to other countries, and sometimes you think, hey, come on, why can't you just paint this boat or this car? Can't you just fix it? I mean, is there a problem with fixing it? So I would just fix it. But people say in different countries, well, it works. So what's the problem? What's your problem?
Yeah, I hear you. But not to get political or anything here, I want to ask you because I've noticed something while I was in Germany in 2017, and through my conversations with Ralfcam as well, um, about how the Germans have managed to move from the previous Hitler era and how the country itself managed to work itself out of that and expressively distance itself from those incidences, the Holocaust, to be specific. And with what's happening now around the world, the Black Lives Matter movements and things that are happening in America. And I've noticed that in South Africa, we come from apartheid. We black people have been oppressed here in South Africa in their own country, and but we hardly see, not hardly, but we don't there isn't enough show, especially from white people. There isn't enough coming out of them to say we are against what happened in the past. Like some say it, but it's not as expressive as the Germans have done it in the past about how they don't want to be associated with what has happened with the Holocaust, not even to try and um, act as if like it did not happen or ignore it, but to really acknowledge it, but and specifically say that we are not part of this. We don't want to be part of this. We don't ever want to be seen in this light. And we don't see much of that, or we see a bit of it in South Africa, but not in that expressive manner. Why do you think, from a German side, why was it so important for Germans to really stand up against that era, the Holocaust and the Hitler era?
Well, I'm I'm not the greatest political person. I think just we had to. I think in the late 40s and 50s we just had to. We had to. They had to find. Well, I can't say about myself, but they had to find themselves again to be part of the world, and because I mean we are surrounded by all our enemies. I mean we have a lot of borders around us, that there is just the need to be part of it, and to be to be cooperative. And well, look at the States right now. I mean, it's not only about Black Lives Matter. It's a general thing that Trump is oppressing the whole country in a sense, and it's changing things for the bad. We think that it is, and it's all about money and power, and there are so many people standing up against it, but it just doesn't work, not yet. So they came to a point where maybe it really crashes. If you look on Turkey, the oppression of Erdogan is really, he kills artistry, education, free press, everything. But it's a matter of time. I mean, in Germany we got lucky, more or less, that the Allies were basically quite nice to us. I think, I mean, there was a huge debt cut. They took a lot of pressure off of us after the war ended, and and also because everything was destroyed, it was a chance to start again, to do a quick start again, with a completely new technology era, in manufacturing and stuff. I mean, the Russians took all the machines, so there had to be quite some new inventions and stuff. And but to be honest, I have no clue. It's not something I think about. My family comes from all over the world. I mean, my father comes from Athens, Greece. My aunt was married with a Hungarian guy and lived in Switzerland. My sister is living since 40 years now in the States, or 45 years even. First was married with a white guy, and now married to a black guy, and accordingly have different colored children, and they already got married again in a mixed colored situation. And it's like, I don't know, I don't give a shit about colors or ethnics or something. If you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. That's all.
Now I hear that, and
Yeah.
I think whenever I have Ralph again, actually, I do want to ask him the same question. But I think it's very commendable that still that the country moved on, really, like to really denounce that we are not part of that. We don't want that, and that is so wrong. And I think we need to see, especially in America, we need to see white Americans denouncing the racism, the systemic racism. Same as in South Africa, we have such a lot of racial issues, naturally from our past. And it would be much more, we would move forward better if more white people were saying, we actually care and realize that that thing was bullshit and it should not have happened, and we distance ourselves from it, not only from the past but even now into the future. We do not want to see ourselves oppressing other people just on the basis that we have been previously advantaged. I think we can wrap it here. Let me just tell people where they can get you. I was sharing to Andres Balaskas from Master Lab Studios, Master Lab Academy. You can follow him or follow them on Instagram at masterlab_academy, on Facebook Master Lab Mastering Studios, and the website is masterlabonline.de. Thank you so much. Sorry for waking you up super early, but I really appreciate your time and efforts.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thanks for having me here. I mean, this is, well, I have my own YouTube channel, but it's in German, and we do a lot of talks, but normally we talk at night. That's why it's called Night Talk. It starts at 10 or 11 p.m. And this is the normal time I'm used to talk. But it was very, very nice for you having me, well, over the continents, and talk about music and all this stuff.
Sure.
I'm glad to be here.
Cool. Sorry, if you can just answer this. What are your rates right now? If people, some people might just want to know.
They just they're not so easy to explain, but they can go to the website.
Cool.
Masterlab online or masterlab.de. Just this is also working, and there's a shop. There's a booking, and you just put in the number of tracks you want to master, and it spits out a number. Because if it's just one, we start at 125. And the more tracks you book, the cheaper it gets. And also, it's I didn't promote it yet, but I'm giving 20% Corona discount right now. So the Have Me Mastering, which comes in here, there's a 20% discount. And
cool.
It's not the cheapest, but I hope the work speaks for it.
The work does definitely speak. And guys, it's not 125 rands. It's 125 euro, okay? That's to clear that. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and this was another edition of the Bread for Soul Convos with myself, Sir LSG. Enjoy. I hope you enjoy. Tomorrow I've got Dr. Duda from Mikasa. Tune in and enjoy the session, and remember to stay creative. Peace out.